So I say, hey, Mr. Seller, what if I just take over the payments on your existing mortgage? You have a 4%, 5% rate from 2021, 2022. If I go out, apply to get a mortgage right now, I'm going to get a rate twice that, meaning my cost of financing is twice what yours is. Why would it make sense for the banks to win when I can go in, just take over the payments on your mortgage, pay you, $2,000 to $5,000 as an example, and then just purchase this property, and then now I can also cash flow because my mortgage payment might be $2,000 and market rent might be $2,500 as an example. So now I can actually cash flow versus if I had to go to the bank now.
What is up, YouTube? Today, I've got a special treat for you. One of the things that I love about YouTube and what this has provided me is the opportunity to connect with all sorts of people around the country and the world. I've interviewed people on different continents, and today, this guy reached out to me and he was like, hey, I want to see an in-depth look of PaintOS. And I looked up his website and he was in real estate. This dude, Coen, is 22 years old, just crushing it in real estate. And we just were dialoguing and I was trying to think of what's the most valuable thing that I could provide him in this hour that I have. And so here is the unfiltered conversation that we had. I'm talking about things in here like Lovable and Claude and Gemini and when to use each one, and the strengths and weaknesses of each. He was trying to strategize what is the tool that he's going to build the apps that his real estate business needs to function. And so we talked about dashboards and all sorts of stuff. But without further ado, here's the conversation with Coen. Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am joined by Coen Sarwanoke, who is the co-founder of Avenue Solutions. And they are a real estate investment company. And the topic of today is just going to be creative financing, and in particular, also shed some light on how you can make money, begin investing in real estate while still working another job. Interestingly enough, Coen found me from my YouTube videos targeting painting companies, and he reached out and we chatted a few weeks ago. And I was like, this guy's awesome. He's crushing it, brings a lot of energy. So anyways, here we are. Coen, thank you so much for coming on to chat today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So, Avenue Solutions, is this a business that you started while working another job?
Funny enough, I sort of didn't. We actually started Avenue Solutions after I took the jump and already, became self-employed at that point. But, I had started getting involved in real estate actually while I was in high school.
How does someone in high school even begin to, well, I guess I don't really care about the high school piece. That's impressive. But how does someone gain the knowledge, the courage, the ability to get into real estate, regardless of your age? For you, I'm very intrigued. You're now mid-20s?
22.
So you're 22 years old. You have a co-founder of this Avenue Solutions. How many units or doors do you guys have under management currently?
Yeah, so technicality, it's going to be about 70.
And those are all ones that you own, or you are the management for?
Those are ones we own.
How did you do it? When did you start? You said you started in high school. I do feel, I will say that there's a lot of things that you learn as you become an adult. It's like, man, I could have done this 10 years ago. And you're the guy that everyone feels like, man, I could have done this 10 years ago. So what was the pathway to get to where you are now?
Yeah, no, great question. So honestly, I mean, it's nothing crazy. I think so many people, they get caught up because they feel like they have to have everything figured out immediately. I think the biggest thing you have to understand is that at the end of the day, I mean, you can't hope to succeed or do anything if, you're not willing to take action. So imperfect action is always going to be better than no action. And so honestly, nowadays, just the amount of resources at, everybody's disposal just with their phone is kind of crazy. And so there was no cheat code for me. I just simply YouTube University. That was it. I just wanted to learn and sink my teeth in, just kind of, acquire as much knowledge as I possibly could. So I just started out binging YouTube videos. That was it. And then at a certain point, I said, let's just do it. And so I took whatever, I partnered up with my brother at the time, got, scrounged some money together, and then just started hitting those phones, right? Just started calling sellers after just, binging essentially a bunch of YouTube videos for a few weeks, and then sort of learned as I went.
Is that a few weeks of YouTube videos? And you were like, we can do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
What were I don't have to go into every video, but who are the primary content makers that you had an affinity for or were watching a lot of their content?
Yeah. So biggest one initially that even got me, or that let me know at all what wholesaling was about in real estate, was Jerry Norton. So it's Flipping Mastery, I believe, on YouTube. but Jerry Norton, he's a huge voice in the real estate space. So he is a really, I mean, he breaks down these concepts and business models within real estate in a very simplified manner. I mean, anybody can digest those. So his videos were great. Brent Daniels, TTP, was really good, especially for motivation and feeling like anybody can be a salesman. So that was really great. Those two people specifically, as well as Pace Morby, yeah, those were the three people I was watching all of their content before getting started.
That's awesome. And so you tell us, what do you feel like is the most, like in my mind, what I try and do with this podcast is it's a learning experience for me. And in terms of real estate, I'm not an expert in real estate by any means. We have one rental property. We lived in it prior to making it a rental property. And we had one rental property prior to that one, which was the same thing. We lived in it, but we've hesitated on going to get that second or third, or like, I guess it doesn't even matter. You can't have a third until you have a second. What's the thing that you would say is, this is my experience in automation, going from not doing something to doing it in any capacity is one of the hardest things to do. And then there's still like incrementally like hard steps that you learn. But in my experience, it's like the momentum's already started and now you just got to show up and learn another thing the next day. But what is the, like, using me as the example, what's the thing that I don't understand, or what's the unlock that you would give someone that's like, I want to get into real estate, I've heard about it, it's a good way to diversify your investments? Like, what's the things that you feel like are most valuable? And I would say, if you want to teach it from the perspective of, well, this is what I did in my first investment, or if it's like, now I've done a bunch of these, what I would do differently, or this is how I operate now. I kind of like going back to, walk me through, like, how do you navigate, or what were the things that you wish you would have known on those deals 1 through 10 or whatever.
Right, right. Well, I guess the first thing would be is that it's all dependent upon what's stopping you. And yeah, most people, they just have nerves due to the uncertainty, right? And so just understanding that it's okay that you don't have all the answers from the get-go is the first, I guess, mental battle that you have to have. At the end of the day, you may make a couple mistakes. That's fine. I don't know anybody that's done anything without making mistakes. So again, it's mostly just about getting started and asking yourself what's stopping you. And generally speaking, I find that the majority of the time it's just nerves and an uncertainty about mistakes that they can make and what's to come, essentially. But then also, like, what makes you want to get involved in real estate? Like, what are the reasons you want to be involved in real estate? A lot of people, it's, hey, look, I just want to be able to, grow my income, compound my income one way or another. And I know real estate's a really good vehicle to do that. Other people, they want it to turn real estate into a full-time business to replace their job. Depending on what your reason is, you can leverage a lot of people in this space very easily. I mean, real estate's just fully like relationship based industry, and so it's one of those things where you can go and leverage a flipper out there already doing deals and understand in and out how that business works without even having to necessarily go and purchase your property first right away. So as an example, real estate's just super easy to get into. I mean, if you go and find a distressed property and you bring it to a flipper, say, or just, even before you do that, go to a networking event, right? Get into touch with some flippers in the business and say, hey, look, I mean, if I find, a property that needs some work, or, a seller that may be interested in selling, like, if I were to bring this lead to you and whatnot, can you walk me through A to Z how I would, go about potentially approaching an offer, running my numbers, how do you know what to offer, those types of things. That's a really good place to start. If you want to get involved in investments specifically, and you have money and capital already that you're looking and say, hey, look, I want to get involved, I just don't know where. Another great way.
So I'm going to slow down because those are all fantastic. So let's say, and again, I'm going to treat this like you're just giving your coaching session for me, because these are where my questions are at. If someone's in my similar space, great. But so to answer some of the questions that you just laid out, what's stopping us? I would say basically, I don't know, uncertainty. I almost feel like the first thing is, when you even ask me that question, which is a great question, because it's like, I guess I haven't actually decided how much money do I need to go at what. It's kind of like if you're going to go play poker, this is the analogy I'm using, tell me if I'm thinking about this the right way. They'd be like, well, you should learn the rules of poker maybe, and then you have to like decide what tier poker game am I going to play. Am I going to pay like $10 buy-in, $100 buy-in, $1,000 buy-in? It's like it's all the same rules, I think. But at least in my mind, I'm like, how much money does someone need to start? Because I feel like for my wife and I, we have no interest in being flippers because we both have full-time jobs. And I get for like the game that I want to play would be start acquiring rentals. And the reason, if you're saying why would I care about that, it's because I feel like we have a profitable business that's doing well. And I have heard that real estate investments are a great way to diversify, so we're not 100% in the stock market, but also like it just gives you more options. Whereas your stock, if you're doing into like a 401k or a Roth or any other retirement accounts, it's like, well, what if we decide we want to do something or sell these houses and buy a lake house or do, it's like the options. It seems like real estate provides that. So that's my motivation. There's a part of me that feels like we need to have a certain amount of money, but at the same time, like I know that's not necessarily true, but we've never even set a target of this is what we want to get. What would be the cheapest or the lowest amount of money we would need to be able to get that thing? Does that make sense? Or what questions do you have to like explain what I'm missing or something?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I would ask you, right, if what is the number that you'd be comfortable, you know what I mean, spending to get involved in real estate would be the first thing, right? I think that would help. It would help me understand where I can push you as far as the involvement.
So, okay, if I said 50 grand.
So with $50,000, let me give you a couple of ways, right? So real estate is great from as a lender. Immediately, that's one thing that you can look at, right? How can I be a lender? Because as a lender, you can structure a deal because real estate's great in the sense that it's a physical asset. So stock, right? If I go in and invest some, my funds into the stock market, at the end of the day, it's not like I can walk down the street and there's a real tangible asset. So if you don't pay me in real estate, right, I can go just take this property back. So it's very secure in that sense. Whereas the stock market, it's very volatile. It can fluctuate as well, but it obviously depends on the stock. Now, if you had $50,000, one thing I would say is you can go in and get started as a lender. Another way you can get started is just as a credit sponsor. So, as an example, I'm super young, right? So when I started out, I don't have any credit history essentially, right? And so at one point or another, we started doing wholesaling, right? So that's another thing we could talk about. But I started doing wholesaling, which means I was flipping paper. I was finding the opportunities for investors, right? And that helped me get my head around the business model without actually having to go in and commit to buying a property and taking all the risk that's associated with that. I got started, and that's something that I always recommend to especially young and hungry people that really want to get involved with real estate as a business. But as an investment vehicle, I would say some things to look at would be a lender, a credit sponsor. So individuals like myself utilize a credit sponsor so that, for instance, I can go and flip a property, apply to get a hard money loan. I can find a credit sponsor, right, whom I can essentially bring onto the LLC and utilize their credit. There are people that make $10,000 a deal just credit sponsoring. And you can imagine if there's a flipper, especially if they have experience, right, and they know what they're doing, and you can underwrite the deal yourself beforehand so that you understand the financials to make sure it's a good deal. And you could just put your credit on the line as long as it's a good enough deal. Essentially, somebody's out there working, dealing with all of the management of all the contractors, dealing with material orders, all this good stuff. Meanwhile, you're working your job and you can work at whatever structure you'd like, whether that's 20% profit on the flip itself, whether that means $15,000 flat, whether that means you get a percentage of whatever the cash flow on that property, or you get equity. There's just so many different ways from that aspect without you ever having to involve yourself on the day to day to still be able to make money. And then the other way would be, like I said, as a lender, where you're putting up the capital and leveraging someone else, right? And the hours that they have to do basically to essentially do the entire deal for you. So that's the other benefit is that you can still work your job while your money is working on the back end, leveraging that flipper whom they spend all of their days obviously flipping homes. So they're going to know their way around that. On your end, if you're wanting to, it allows you to be able to work your job, which is something that you're really good at, that you can net a high return on as well. So it's like you're arbitraging essentially. And we all know how profitable that can be, just an arbitrage. Those are two ways right off the bat. And there's more and more. I could go through many.
So very interesting. And if you're if the goal is, if I'm thinking about this correctly, the me lending money to someone else, that's going to give me short-term ROI within what 60 days, 90 days, 100, I don't know how long, depending on the deal terms or what the plan is for the person that's borrowing the money. But let's say it's within a year, right? If the goal is like I'm trying to build a cash flow investment that because I own the thing, at what tier, and obviously it's going to depend on the market that you're in. In Coeur d'Alene, I feel like it's a pretty expensive market. Where are most of your properties at?
They're in the KC metro, so Kansas City area for the most part.
And how did you settle on that?
Yeah, so that's just because that's when I
Because that's not where you live, right?
it's not. No, I live in California, so all the way across the other side of the country. The reason I started doing business there was simply because so I actually initially I started wholesaling here or attempting to wholesale here when I was younger in high school, failed miserably. I then started doing some light learning how to do automation engineering and using that to get back into wholesaling. And then that's when I met up with a gentleman whom we started partnering together, right? And then that's how I got my feet right back into wholesaling all over again. And then he was out of Kansas City initially. And then after we split, I now had really good knowledge on that market at that point and had relationships there as well with investors. And so I just continued to virtually work that market from California.
And how often, or you're currently still buying houses in Kansas City? We're like never, not even like seeing them, or do you fly out there all the time?
So I do fly back and forth, but at this point, I've built out a team, and so my team, though I do have others that are virtual, there I do have a presence. Like I have an on the ground team and office in Kansas City currently, and so but we've also scaled back purchasing at the time being. But whenever we purchase any property at this point, I can have my team down there walk that property.
So, I mean, where else do you want to take this? I'm kind of open to your thoughts on what do you feel. Things I like to hit on are the most critical, like impressive, or the tricks, the low hanging fruit, the other pieces of advice that you would give to someone that's trying to get in. And again, I'm assuming you mentioned creative financing, which you kind of explained creative financing on me. Like if I wanted to lend the money, that would be one way to for the buyer to creatively find people like myself to buy, right? But creative financing, my understanding of it is I'm interested in buying a house, and so the traditional way would be you go to a bank and they say, okay, you got to put 25% down for an investment property. What's your debt to income ratio? This is how much we're going to give you, blah blah blah. Like that's it, right? Creative financing would be anything that is not that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an open door as far as the definition goes, but yeah, anything that you would consider potentially like non-traditional and like a financing and overall transaction structuring arrangement is how I would describe it.
So yeah, tell me, you mentioned that was something that you love doing or thinking about.
Yeah.
What are your favorite recurring tools in the creative financing playbook to use?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, yeah, I love creative financing and for a couple of reasons. With creative financing, I mean, what if I told you can get paid $10,000 to buy a property? I mean, that almost sounds crazy, right? So I'm not even talking about purchasing something $0 out of pocket. At this point, I'm saying, what if, you were able to structure a deal where you got paid $20,000, put money in your pocket to go and own a cash flowing asset that's only going to appreciate in value and allow you to depreciate income against your taxes as well. So I mean, that's the beauty of creative finance. And I can give you an example on how that's even possible. So, first off, a major way. So, I purchased the large majority of the properties that we purchased in under a year and a half. You know what I mean? And that happened due to the fact that we leverage a lot of creative financing. So, as an example, something you can do that is considered creative financing is purchasing a property subject to the existing mortgage. So, recently in the US, we saw that home like as far as the real estate market appreciating, it was sort of stagnant, right? So we saw a lot of just because interest rates were driven up, that affected a lot of homeowners' ability to go out and get mortgages, which then, of course, reduced the amount of buyers in the market at large. And so naturally, what that meant is that home prices were skyrocketing and then they sort of stabilized. So that means everybody that owned a home, the value somewhat stayed the same roughly over the next 2 years following 2022, depending on the market. Now, what that means though is that if somebody purchased a home in 2022 with a VA loan, meaning 0% down, that means 2 years later they have zero equity in that house. And so if they want to sell that home, they now have to write a check to sell that home, right? because they now have to go and pay a real estate agent 3 to 6% out of pocket, in addition to, inspections and showings and staging costs and all this other stuff. So they can easily come out of pocket $10,000 to $60,000 in that scenario. But, so that's where creative financing comes in, a non-traditional approach to a situation that needs, essentially the solution to that problem is something that a real estate agent can't give you or can't solve via traditional means. And so the way I approach those situations, we've purchased so many properties from sellers in that exact same scenario. And the way so that's just coming up with solutions to the problems that we're facing. So I say, hey, Mr. Seller, what if I just take over the payments on your existing mortgage? You have a 4%, 5% rate from 2021, 2022. If I go out and get that same, or go out and apply to get a mortgage right now, I'm going to get a rate twice that, meaning my cost of financing is twice what yours is, right? Why would it make sense for the banks to win when I can go in, just take over the payments on your mortgage, pay you, $2,000 to $5,000 as an example, and then, just purchase this property. And then now I can also cash flow because, my mortgage payment might be $2,000 and market rent might be $2,500 as an example. So now I can actually cash flow versus if I had to go to the bank now, my mortgage payment may be $2,800, right? So we now took a situation where a seller was basically guaranteed to lose $20,000, and we turned to a situation where they can now make $5,000, $6,000. In addition to that, they're ecstatic because now they're going to obviously go and tell friends and family whom could also be in situations where we can now help. So it's also a reoccurring business in that aspect as well. So that just gives you an example on how you can structure a deal.
In that scenario, not the first deal ever, I'm saying makes total sense what you're saying. It almost feels like if I'm not talking to my neighbor and they tell me that, how am I going to and again, I'm sure that you can go call people, call listings, and you just are inquiring to why are you selling, when did you buy it, or whatever. But I'm sure there's tools or automation. That's where my mind goes, is like, how do you make a pipeline of this to feed the business so it's lower effort or lower touch than just like, oh, well, yeah, step one is call 1,000 people and 10 of them will have it, which I'm sure that works too.
Right. No, and actually that's one of the best ways. I mean, that's what I would recommend to somebody, because the way that I treat creative finance is just a tool on your tool belt. At the end of the day, I like to just look at myself as a problem solver, right? So I'm in real estate, right? I can pull a list of, and I'm going to go through the tools, but I can pull a list of 5,000 people as an example, and I can reach out to those people. Now, out of those people, maybe 100 people want to sell their property. Now, each one of those sellers is going to have a different reason for wanting to sell and be in a completely different scenario than the next. And so creative finance, what that does is it gives me more tools on my tool belt to then solve problems as they come across my desk. It just allows me to serve people better. So some people look at creative finance as in like, I'm going to zone in and look for specifically subject to opportunities. And that is something that you can do. But the best way is to say, how do I just get leads through my door? And then how can I increase the percentage of leads in which I can actually convert via my ability or via the fact that I have more tools on my tool belt to service these people. Yeah, so some tools that you can use, right, just to pool lists, and this is if you were doing outbound marketing, but if you wanted to pool lists of people, you can use tools like PropStream as an example. You can manually do those, and they have list automator tools in there as well to help you do what's called list stacking. So at the end of the day, we want to, all of the sellers that I'm marketing to are motivated sellers. I don't want to market to people that I have zero idea, that they might be willing to sell. I want to look for people that have attributes, from what I can tell, that would align themselves with my, target avatar, right? So I might be looking for people that are in bankruptcy, people that are going through divorces, pre-foreclosure, right? I'm having trouble paying my mortgage. Those are people that can use our help and actually have a problem that needs solved. So what we do is, like all of this stuff is public information, right? And so you can essentially, you can go to the county and pull these things yourself, or these records yourself, and or you can use a third-party tool like PropStream as an example, which helps automate a lot of these processes for you. And then lastly, now at this point, and this is where we're getting into some interesting stuff, utilizing AI and Zillow, even you can extract a lot of data there as well. There are certain APIs and whatnot that you can tap into and create flows where on a daily or weekly basis, you're having X amount of leads that fit a certain criteria, get automatically uploaded into either a dialer or your CRM system so that you can then outreach to those people. Those are just a couple ways right off the bat that you can do that. If you're a real estate agent with MLS access, that makes it even more easier because now you have access to more data at your fingertips. So my business partner, as an example, he's licensed. So we do get access to MLS data as well. So that's a huge plus, which makes it easier. And then But you can get out there right now and easily find sellers in this position. I mean, if I go on Zillow right now, I can filter and say, show me properties that are for sale for 90 days or more. And then I can, look at those properties and just look for the last sold date being, since 2021 or 2022. Most of those people, they have no equity or they have very little equity. And one of the reasons they can't lower the price is because they can't afford to, right? If they lower the price more, that's more money out of their pocket that they're already, having to cough up essentially.
So you're saying you would go, your like great little hack is look for houses that are on the market for more than 90 days. The last time the house was sold was after 2021 or 2022. Or I guess you say after 21 because that would include 2022, obviously. But that means there was the bubble, super low interest rates. They got into a house and now their loan is 40% higher than the house is currently worth because rates have corrected. And they're just like, what do we do?
Exactly. No, exactly. And then that's a great way to go reach out to their real estate agent and teach them something or help them get a commission as well, which gets you recurring business.
Interesting. Have you messed around with OpenClaw at all?
No, I have not. I'm not sure. I've never.
I just asked. It's like an AI, like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. But what you do is I'm running it on a Mac Mini, and by the way, I'm like 24 hours into this. I've watched videos for a week, and it's been out for I don't know 3-4 months, but it's like it was kind of quiet. But essentially, it's like imagine if you had Claude, but you gave it just full control of your entire computer, so you let it go do things that you would do on that computer, like browse the web. It can go, log into things for you, go search. So I just asked it, what are ways I could use you to find real estate investment deals, situations where sellers have a house listed for 90 days or more, and the last sold date was 2021 or 2022. And it just said there's three specific options. One, daily deal scanner. So a cron job that runs every day at 8 a.m. Search Zillow for 90-day listings in your target area, blah, blah, blah. And then email you a digest of the new opportunities. Option two, I don't know if you could do that with ChatGPT or if other ones have, can you do recurring things like that? You could do it every day, but can it be like on a repeat thing?
Yeah, especially because you could use Make or whatever to schedule trigger too.
Yeah, to do that for you. Yeah. Option connect to your CRM if you have one, auto populate lead lists, and then see spreadsheet automation, Google Sheets. Anyways, but I'm like, the interesting thing is just the idea of I'm sure that AI can look for trends or interesting things, or because isn't it possible to also see who owns a house through certain databases? Not RMLS doesn't list that though, right?
No, you can, yeah, you can find all that stuff very easily with or without MLS.
Interesting, because it's like if a human can do it, now AI can just go, even if the database doesn't have an API, you can just say go comb this, go look through this, look for correlations. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can use web crawlers and whatnot, AI web crawlers to just sit there and scan 50 different, county websites that have data that you're looking for that gets updated on a daily or weekly basis. And like you see me doing this virtually. I mean, there was a time where I was wholesaling properties at the early part of 2024, the late part of 2023, we had deals in like, like we were touching deals in every state. I was just wholesaling deals in Washington, Maine, Louisiana, Kentucky, Minnesota, Michigan, it didn't matter. We had deals in Hawaii, Florida, whatever. And we were just wholesaling these things. And so some of these deals were, yeah, subject to, right? So we would go and find a seller, put that deal together subject to, find an investor that we trust in that area, and then, play matchmaker and make a fee there as well. But my point is that yeah, with AI and all these automation engineering tools as well, and the fact that you can kind of do real estate virtually from anywhere at this point, I mean, the sky's the limit. You can just do so many things with $0 marketing costs, and this is high ticket, right? Some of these deals we can net $30,000 off of flipping paper, and when your marketing costs are $0 because you just called an agent on the MLS, I mean, you can't get margins fatter than that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. What? Any other last nuggets before we move to our wrap up questions?
Yeah, I mean, not so much. I mean, there's just so many things I could say. Anybody can get involved, and you can get involved with real estate for $0 today. You can get in. It doesn't really matter what your scenario is. Real estate is so broad, and there's so many people also willing to like help you out as well, which is super nice. And if, like anybody can do it, right? I mean, I was doing it 16 years old, like 2021, no idea what I was doing. And, so it's so easy. It's so possible. You can do anything nowadays.
That's awesome. What are 3 book recommendations that you have?
They're not going to be nothing probably too, I don't know. They might be a little bit mainstream, but I know Traction's a really good one that I read. I like that one, Traction. Another one, and this may not be like so much it was like one of the first books that I really read. I was a teenager, but I believe it was called I have to find it, but I believe it was called the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. And it's relatively surface level, but it just gives you a really good understanding of just certain concepts that you end up one way or another learning later. Higher A players, at the end of the day, it's it's much more cost effective at the end of the day, like higher A players. Business is going to fluctuate, things like that, but it babies you in. So those are my 3 suggestions.
And movie suggestion or show?
I'm going to give you a show. There's a really good one. So there's a show called, I don't know if you've seen it, called Lie to Me.
I've heard of it, haven't seen it.
Yeah, I love that one. Super into psychology. So that one's really fascinating. Yeah, it breaks down all the psychology behind like tics and things that people.
What streaming platform is it on?
I believe you can get it on Hulu right now. It should be on Hulu.
Okay. Awesome. I always like asking movie and shows because I don't have a ton of time to watch movies, but when I do, I keep a list of all these recommendations and I just, store it away because I've seen most of the popular stuff, or I guess if it's popular, I'm like, that doesn't look like my thing. But it's so hard when there's just hundreds of things. It's like, I love getting someone like, yeah, this is a great one. Just, lock that away for a rainy day sometime. And if people want to get in touch, what's your preferred method of contact?
I'm going to be starting a new Instagram, but I mean, right now, my personal Instagram, I suppose that, or my phone number. So my Instagram is just my first name, Coen _ here. And that's it. That's where.
That's awesome. Well, Coen, super fun. Last question. Have you built anything on Lovable or done any automation work since we chatted a few weeks ago?
I have plans for something I'm building on Unlovable, but I haven't. I got Claude, huge. That's huge as far as difference between ChatGPT and the other AI models and whatnot, as far as being able to help you think, and plan. So that was a really good recommendation. But anyways, using Claude and whatnot, I have plans to build several lead magnets that'll fit really nicely into our sales process for our outreach with agents like we were just speaking about. So that's something I've planned, but I haven't yet jumped on that just yet.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Stay in touch and be sure to share any other cool automation things that you apply in the real estate world. I'm always curious about that. And yeah, it was fun chatting and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.